So, hello Satyr and welcome to Finland.
Thank you so much.
So, today we are gonna talk a little bit about you as a metal vocalist. So, are you ready to answer some tough questions about yourself?
Well, tough questions is fine. If they're rude, I won't answer.
So, the first question actually goes that do you recall when you heard heavier rock or metal music for the first time in your life?
Yeah, it's the same old story from me there. I had some older cousins and some older neighbors as a child that turned me on to heavy music. That was Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Rainbow, the 1970s, Scorpions, because this was around 1981, 1982. For those who are too young to remember or for some other reason don't know, Scorpions was a band that was a quite classic hard rock band of the 70s and then became more of a ballad band later.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Sabbath and Purple were the most important ones, but also Motorhead at some point, Kiss at some point. And then in 1986 we moved from countryside Norway to a peninsula right side of Oslo. There was an older kid down the street that was 3-4 years older than me, and then he turned me on to thrash metal basically the second week after moving there.
So were those like the Bay Area bands like Slayer, for example? Or?
It was Metallica, it was Slayer, it was Anthrax, it was Testament, it was all that stuff. And I was actually only 6 years old and when I really started getting into heavy music, and the reaction that I've had many times is, just 6 years, and my answer to that would be, I have two sons, 9 and 12, but depends on what you are receptive to. But my youngest son, he started catching on to that music when he was probably around 6. It depends on what your interests are and what you're receptive to. But if you are receptive to it, what you need is an older brother, an older cousin, an uncle, a dad, something like that, to say, hey, check this out. And then to many kids, it's going to be like, all right, that's fine. But to some kids, it will be appealing, and that kind of music to me was appealing already that early, and it set me out on the path that led me to this couch where we sit here and talk about my career in music, I guess.
Were like Slayer and all those Bay Area bands the bands that made you become a musician, or how did that happen for you?
That was for sure the first bands that I heard that made me want to play. It was Sabbath, it was Purple, it was Zeppelin, all of those bands. And I mean, Iron Maiden was super important, Kiss at some point, but I was never like the biggest Kiss fan in the world, but they were also part of it. I mentioned Motorhead, but I would say that the giants of the 70s, Sabbath, Purple and Zeppelin, were the ones that really got me onto it. And then, after a while, I wanted my music to become perhaps tougher, harder, more extreme. But, I mean, the first record that I bought for my own money was AC/DC, Let There Be Rockin'. I was 7, I think it was around 7, around 1982. So, there comes a point where, you might stop liking bands like that because they feel too soft, and then you go on to more extreme things, but then you come back full circle to bands like that, and that's what it's been like for quite some time. To me, there's no real drama in it. Like I used to be a very committed skateboarder, and how does that happen? Well, I mean, you can try skateboarding and go, all right, but then you see someone doing incredible things on the skateboard, and then you go like, oh yeah, I want to try and do what he does, and that's what it's like with music too. It's like you can be surrounded by music, but then there might be something that in your ears is incredible, and then you just go from there, want to do it yourself.
So when it comes to like more extreme type of vocals, how did you start your journey? Did you start by like mimicking your own influences and then figuring out your own way to do things?
So when I moved to the peninsula of Nesodden outside Oslo in the summer of 1986, it must have been around 87, I think, where there was it perhaps called Rebel Records? I think it was. But anyways, there's a clothing store there today. It's on at the corner by Grand Hotel on the main avenue of downtown Oslo, where I bought the Emperor's Return EP by Celtic Frost. There was strangely enough, a bookstore that sold LPs out on the peninsula Nesodden, where they had Possess, Venom, things like that. There was a radio show that was about once a week, and now we are between 86 and 88. This radio show where I did what all heavy metal fans did. This you used a cassette and you would record the radio show in case there was something good. Yeah. And I have been asked many times, do you remember which song? But I don't remember. But there was a Bathory song.
Okay.
And I just remember vaguely, like someone said something like, oh, here's a band from Sweden called Bathory so-and-so. I think we can imagine, since that this radio show must have been somewhere between 86 and 88, could have been Under the Sign of the Black Mark, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, when I heard an extreme vocal style for the first time, I don't remember thinking it was any better or worse. To me, it felt natural. I don't remember having thoughts or feelings like, oh, wow, what's that? Or I don't remember feeling particularly drawn or, confused. Or to me, just fell into place, and it still does to this day. I never understood why. I tried different vocal styles, but for me, where I come to be the best version of myself is as a black metal singer. Probably because I would be a very average singer if I did any vocals with sort of normal vocals, but also because I think I have a good understanding of what makes good black metal vocals. So there's one part of it is sort of controlling the breath and knowing how to sing this vocal style and the dynamics of it. But as a lyricist, I think it's easier for me because I understand the importance of conveying the emotions that lies within the lyrics.
Yeah.
The few times in my life where I've had to sing lyrics written by someone else is more challenging for me because I cannot fully connect in the same way as I do with something that I've written myself. But also, rhythmically speaking, to strengthen the structural backbone of the song by singing rhythmically is important, and I think to be understandable is a much more powerful language than the opposite. And I have even gone to great lengths sometimes when some people have said like, "Oh yeah, I listen to your music and it's really cool, but I don't understand anything of the vocals. I don't understand what you're saying." And I tell those people, I don't believe you. I absolutely don't believe you. And on a couple of occasions, I've actually sat down with people, played them one verse, and I said, what am I singing here? And like, I don't know. No, you try. Because what they do is that when they hear extreme metal vocals, they decide in 3 seconds, I don't understand anything. But if you hear me sing, you will understand what I'm singing. And I think that is an important part of it. Something that just sounds like screaming, which is sort of very hard to define, takes a lot of the power out of it for me. So I try to be a distinct vocalist, if you will.
But I think you have always been pretty precise with like articulation. I guess that's been also very important.
Articulation is a big part of it. The rhythm is a big part of it. But also, what is it that you want? And I don't want it to come across as just screaming. And I try, even though it's not a melodic vocal style, I try my best to find the tone that fits with the riff. So it doesn't have to be like a static, monotonous thing. But you could say that a guitar riff, even though it keeps moving around with its chord progressions, it has an area in which it operates. And if you just do sort of senseless screaming without taking that into consideration, then in my eyes, it doesn't work. I'll give you an example. I think Tom Araya is an excellent singer, one of the best. In my opinion, he still is. But there was a time where maybe he was very much into some of his hardcore influences. So there was a time in Slayer's live performances, like an era, where he would do this monotonous shouting on almost all Slayer songs. Very, very different from on the records. That I didn't quite understand, because I used to like him, and I still like him. But he had a few years where everything would be like...
Yeah, he was taking too much from his influences into the band.
And then he would try and sort of use that on all songs. And what was wrong for me was that his lack of tone didn't really fit the music, because even Slayer is not particularly melodic. There's still a lot of tone in what they do. And tone and melody isn't necessarily the same. So that's an important part to try my best to get that right, to see like, okay, what is the vibe, what is the atmosphere, but what is also the tone of what's going on in the guitar, and try and not necessarily try to emulate that, but to sing in a way that sort of sits nicely with how the riffs come across to the listener.
Obviously, black metal is pretty extreme music style to sing. So did it take like long time for you to figure out the right technique for it when you started doing it? Were you losing your voice in the early days all the time, or?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I was losing my, but certainly the performances would be varied. The challenges of today are different. It's so your natural voice is gonna change with, I think, for James Hetfield to make his voice sound like Kill 'Em All or Ride the Lightning is just probably physically impossible.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, how old is he? Around 60, something like that? Something like that. And he did this when he was like 18, 20, 22, I don't know. Something around that. I mean, even if he was not the singer in Metallica, his voice is still gonna change.
Yeah, of course, everybody's voice is gonna change.
Yeah. And if you sit and listen to a radio interview of me or a video interview that's 25 years old, it doesn't sound like my voice today. So when we do that, when we sing, let's say, older songs, I know that I just have to find
different approach.
Yeah, different approach. Yeah.
But like you couldn't do them like in a way you did when you were 20.
No, so when I tried that, maybe like a couple of lines, but to sing a whole song like that would be, if not impossible, more or less. And so, yeah. Also, the way you sing, both on records and live, is very much influenced by a lot of technical factors that has to do with gear. So let's say when I'm in the studio, I know what kind of microphones that I like to use, that are microphones that work with me instead of against me. Because if you start working with someone that works against your natural voice and style and approach, you have a tendency of overcompensating and just completely blowing your voice, trying to force it to sound the way you want it to sound. If you have a microphone and a preamp that is receptive to what you're trying to do, you don't have to force that much into it, so you can do a more natural performance without squeezing the drop out of the lemon, if you will. Same thing can also be experienced live. If your listening conditions are wrong, it can compromise a little bit the vocal quality, because it's not about, oh, I can't hear myself or I can't hear the others. It's more like, yes, I can hear myself and I can hear the others. But if I hear myself in the wrong way, even if I can hear myself and them it can't just be about like, oh yeah, I'm here, they are there. It has to blend together nicely so that you, in an organic way, can do your vocal performance as you're supposed to. So for me, it's more important. I play guitar on some songs as well live. It's much more important for me to fine tune the listening conditions for the vocals, because my guitar sound is my guitar sound, but that's going to be a less changeable situation than my vocals. My vocals is, after all, a part of my human body. The guitar is not.
When you started doing like more tours with Satyricon, were you ready as a vocalist to do like show after show after show, or was it like a big learning experience for you? And is it like very different now when you are playing way more longer sets on tours?
Darren Malakian in System of a Down and we had a conversation many years ago about the art of sequencing. And the art of sequencing is basically how you perceive a record as a music fan is largely based on the sequence of the song. One song might feel slow if it comes after this song, but if you put it after that song, then it doesn't feel slow. The tempo is going to be the same, but how you perceive the tempo depends on the context, what comes before it, and perhaps also after it. Same thing with records. If you build the sequence nicely, you can very much shape how the listener perceives your album. If it's more random, it's more down to luck and circumstance. When you play live, I apply some of the same type of thinking, but also when I play live, it's also about looking into, you know, what's on a physical level good for our drummer Frost. If we do something which is very extreme tempo-wise from the get-go, he can certainly do that. But there is always this chance that he could potentially have a case of stiff muscles very early in the show, and then that will follow him for the entire concert. I know that when we start off like we do on this tour with Now Diabolical, which has shitloads of vocals, it's a higher risk for me, and it's a difficult song to get into. I cannot necessarily do the same vocal warm-up exercises that I would do for other shows that we've done in the past. I have to try and make it work well for Now Diabolical. That could be just certain scales that I sing that I find more suitable to get myself warmed up for that being the first song. Could be that a power nap or anything that provides physical rest in the last couple of hours could be more useful.
So perhaps. It really depends on like day by day also, how you are feeling yourself. That do you need a lot, or is it like less is enough?
It's depending on the set, and it depends on how many shows we played in a row. But at some point in time, we used to have this thing where we let the agents just set up the shows, which was a very bad thing to do, because they would set up. I remember, for example, on Now Diabolical, we did 31 shows in 35 days. And I mean, that is only an agent could set up something like that. So hopeless. And we changed that and took more control over that from the age of Nero onwards. And we more or less established a routine where we don't do more than 4 shows in a row, so that we can recover physically with our bodies from all the headbanging and all that. All the athletic aspect of our performance, but also there's some restitution for the extremities of what Frost does as a drummer, but also for me as a singer.
So are there like some specific foods or drinks that you have felt that they help you to prepare for a show, or something that you don't want to take that you have felt that they harm you with the vocal cords?
A moderate alcohol intake, as much sleep as possible. I really like spicy food, but I try and stay away from it on tour. Now I'm sitting here talking to you. This is my second interview on the tour, and we've been on tour for 2 weeks. when this tour is finished, maybe I will have done 3, but that's how little I do. In the past, it would be like, oh yeah, let's do it. Let's just do a bunch of PR. But then I found out that it's tiring mentally. But also, when we are here talking, there's no point for me sitting here talking to you and answer yes and no. I mean, that doesn't give you or whoever's going to watch this anything. So, but I cannot sit and do 2, 3 per day because it does actually wear out my voice. I try my best to not get sick. It's not always that easy, but if you do get a cold, flu, something, you will struggle with your voice. Sometimes, you work on your crowd and you make them chant and go, hey, and all that. And then some days you feel like, okay, if I do one more of these now, I'm just going to blow my voice. And then you have to try and be a bit smart about it and maybe do this with your hand instead of or shouting into it like that to sort of conserve what is left. There are some pastilles called Vocal Zone. They work surprisingly well. They also have a tea version of it. There are other sort of non-music related brands that also have these things that sort of lubricate your vocal cords. What kind of vocal warm-up works? I mean, in the past, there would be like you would bring a CD with, that someone had made like a vocal warm-up CD. Now there are apps, of course. Some days I feel like my voice feels fresh. I can just go through lots of scales and feel that is necessary to get myself ready. Other days, maybe I do only like 3 scales and maybe sing like an old Norwegian folk song that goes a little bit up and down like that in ways that I know to be good to prepare myself. But to try and get warmed up, but not too much, so that I take into consideration that I have to leave what's left for the stage and not get like over warmed up, if you will.
So obviously you've released a lot of albums with Satyricon. Are there like some specific albums that you could pinpoint from the discography where you have felt that you've taken a big step forward as a vocalist, learned something new about yourself?
So I think on every record that I've done, I tried my best.
Yeah, of course. Of course, every vocalist is progressing with each album.
When it comes to, I mean, Volcano is a breakthrough in the way that perhaps on Dark Medieval Times, The Shadow Throne, Nemesis Divina, and Rebel Extravaganza, from the first record off, I would be trying to do things rhythmically well and clear, but it would be on and off, and it wouldn't be sort of the same conscious effort. I think on Volcano, that was the first record where I, instead of just making songs and then try and make the vocal arrangement fit with the song after it was done instrumentally, on Volcano, it would be more like, okay, well, this is too long. It doesn't have to be that long because the vocals are gonna have to last only half of this time. So we make this part a little bit shorter. And I would say to Frost, is it necessary to play all these crazy drum fills? And he'd be like, what do you mean? And then I would say in the making of the Volcano album, I would say, because I see myself singing through this part and I have an idea about how. And all these crazy drum rolls are just going to get in the way of the vocals. So please don't play those rolls, just play the beat. So that was a first record where I think already from the songwriting stage where it really started to facilitate good vocal arrangements and performances and much more sort of clarity of mind as to this is what I want the vocals to be like, more rhythmical, arrangement structures, more distinct. So if anything, that would be the turning point, yeah.
So there's also a new Satyricon album in the works. Will there be like something new vocally from you?
Could be. There will be some guest vocalists on it.
Okay.
In terms of what I do, I'm at an interesting place because I like to think that I'm good at what I do as a vocalist, but I might not be that good at other things that I don't do, but I can still learn. And we'll see how that goes. I don't have any plans for anything highly revolutionary. It's more like
Experimenting more with the voice that you have.
Yeah, I would say so.
2 questions left, and the second last one actually goes that what were your parents' reactions when they heard you first time growling your lungs out? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember that. But what I do remember is growing up with a mother that was very supportive of all my musical efforts and plans and projects. I don't think my father was sort of that involved or opinionated, but she was very supportive of it. And then when the ball started rolling, my father would be, I guess, helpful on a practical and also financial level. And those are the things that parents can do to help kids with the fire of music inside them, is that you can empower them by, instead of talking all this nonsense about, oh, you need education or you need this and that, and just tell your kid that if that is your passion, go out there and pursue it. Because ultimately what makes powerful human beings is just people who go out with a purpose and live their life. Yeah, and we're in Helsinki Ice Hall today. So if your kid is all about wanting to play ice hockey, don't tell him, yeah, you can play ice hockey, but remember school. If he says or she says or whatever, I want to be a hockey professional, tell the kid, yeah, go for it.
Do it.
Go for it. Do it. Do it. He or she might not do it, but you certainly increase the chance if you as a parent say, good luck. I support you on all your efforts. I am a result of that kind of parenting myself, being just given a thumbs up and say, don't know what you are doing, but it's your thing. Go for it.
So they maybe saw the passion that you had it already in the early stages.
For sure.
Last question. Any kind of advice that you would like to give to a young metal vocalist who is just about to start their journey? Anything that comes into your mind?
So your voice will change. Try and play it with the voice you have when you are younger. There is room for you to sound extremely spirited and maybe a bit wild, untamed and unhinged. Use that to your benefit if you're an extreme metal singer, because it's the one time in life you can do it. If you are a little bit older, work with that. You know, I'm a mega fan of sports. I always have been, and I've seen it's like. So what's the difference for me? Like like so many Finns, I'm a motorsport enthusiast. Yeah. So maybe the younger motorsport drivers, they have higher willingness to take risk. Maybe the more experienced drivers are a little bit wiser in their choices, you know? Yeah. You can think like that too when it comes to singing. Maybe you can push into more crazy extremes as an extreme metal singer when you're younger, and use your voice more wisely as you reach a certain age and your voice changes. If you have an extreme voice and that is your thing, try and make yourself understood. There might be a tiny little majority that appreciates just incomprehensible screaming. I am not one of them, and I think honestly, if it's distinct, it's more powerful. I think the more vague anything is, the less powerful it is. So I believe in try and be distinct with your rhythm, try and be distinct with your articulation. Don't just sing the lyrics as a bunch of words. Feel the lyrics. if you want something to burn and it says something in the lyrics, burn this, burn that, make the listener feel like you really want this or that to burn. If you want them to believe you, you have to believe it yourself. So to connect with the lyrics on a more spiritual level is extremely important. Write your own lyrics. If you don't know how to write lyrics and someone else is writing lyrics in your band, speak to the lyricist. Try and adopt his or her thing. Find out what microphone and which preamp works well for your voice so that you don't have to fight the equipment, but the equipment works with you. Remember to hydrate. Water is your friend. And when you're out there singing, own your space. Look people in the eye. They are here to see you succeed. They are not here to see you fail. There's nothing to be afraid of. They want to see you do well. And you don't owe them anything. All you need to do is try your best. And don't get drunk or anything silly, and don't wave your hands back and forth and trying to be cool. Just be yourself. That is what radiates confidence to the crowd. And this sort of orchestrated body language is bullshit. Let the music guide your body language and your look and everything, because then some days it will be very powerful. Other days it will be perhaps more introvert and not as extrovert, and you might not connect as well, and it will be less successful. But it will always be real, and realness is an undeniable force.
Definitely agree. Thanks a lot for taking the time to do this with me.